I still can't shake the memories of that afternoon. It was a day like any other. The sun high in the sky, the hum of the AC in the gas station fighting against the lingering heat. It was my shift at the counter, a standard routine for me. Just a normal day, or so I thought. Around the corner of my eye, I caught sight of this car parked in our lot. There were these two guys inside the car, just sitting there. They must have been there a while, the car idling, throwing fumes into the hot afternoon air. They seemed harmless enough, just a couple of fellas burning time, smoking something. I couldn't really tell from the distance whether they were puffing on cigarettes or if it was weed. But you know how it is. I keep to myself, I don't go sticking my nose where it isn't wanted. I remember this lady coming in. She was a bit older, her name was Annie Mae Smith, I'd later learn. She walked into the station to buy some gas and headed back out to her car. Nice enough lady, didn't seem like she was looking for trouble or anything. I glance back out the window a little later, and I see these two guys from the car starting to approach Ms. Smith. Couldn't hear a thing through the thick glass, but I could see enough. I see one of them make a move for her purse, like he was trying to snatch it from her grip. But she wasn't having it, not without a fight. It was clear there was a struggle happening. The other guy steps up next. He pulls out a gun. That's when my heart really starts pounding, right up against my ribs like a jackhammer. The guy starts shooting. Bang! Bang! It happened so fast I could barely comprehend what I was seeing. The sudden violence, the reality of it all, was horrifying. I dropped the change I was counting and grabbed the phone. The first thing I did was dial 911. Police were there fast, and showed up around 5:15. The cops found Ms. Smith out there, the poor woman. She was a local, 65 years old. She didn't make it, she couldn't survive the gunshot wounds. Later, I heard the cops caught the two guys. They were brothers, as it turns out. The charges read like a rap sheet from a crime drama. First-degree murder, 3 counts of using a firearm in the commission of a felony, 2 counts of robbery with a firearm, and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. That day, that ordinary day, it changed everything. It's the kind of memory that doesn't fade, a story that won't leave your mind. It's a cruel reminder that life can change in the blink of an eye, all on a day that started just like any other. I worked overnight at a gas station for a couple months as a second job in order to buy a new car. I worked about 4 nights a week. I normally worked by myself. On the night this incident occurred, I did have a male coworker with me. Let's call him C. It all started at about 4 a.m. when early morning customers were beginning to pour in. There were enough customers to keep me busy behind the register, but I couldn't help but notice a man acting strangely behind the coffee setup. I could tell he was doing something, I didn't know what, but other customers didn't seem alarmed by him, so I kept my distance. The man seemed otherwise normal and was nicely dressed. After about 15 minutes of suspicious activity, I decided to go check the coffee levels. When I approached him around the station, he quickly put something in his pants. I could tell I surprised him. I asked him if he needed any help, to which he replied, "No, ma'am." He seemed innocent enough, so I decided to leave him alone for now and give him the benefit of the doubt. I always give people the benefit of the doubt, and I assumed he had a legitimate reason for acting the way he was. Although I had decided to continue watching him just in case he was stealing. The man continued to stand behind the coffee pots, and I had noticed he was doing something with his hands that involved a lot of movement. He stopped what he was doing when people were getting coffee, and the customers didn't seem to notice him. He continued on like this for about 30 minutes. I was standing behind the register cashing people out. My coworker Steve was with me, but being as useless as usual, hadn't noticed anything. At this time the man went and did something at the ATM. He then turned to me and said the ATM just took my card. That ATM doesn't pull the cards in, I said, it only slides in, then you pull it out. He looked at me dumbfounded, went back behind the coffee display, and continued his rapid movements. I was confused, and I still didn't know what was going on. All I knew was that he was trying to lure me out from behind the register. After a minute, when it was only him left in the store, he came out from behind the coffee pots and said, "Hey, look at this." I looked at him, then at the ATM, then repeated myself, "That ATM didn't take your card, sir." To which he made a downward motion. I looked again and saw his fully erect self out of his pants. He seemed very proud of himself. My next moves are shameful, but I was scared. I grabbed the emergency button and hid behind the register. I didn't know if I should push it, as this wasn't a robbery. I looked back and the man was still in the store. I didn't want to push the alarm button and didn't want to call the cops because he would hear me. So now I looked to see for help. I told him what had just happened over the last 40 minutes and asked him if we should call the cops. He said no, walked up to the man and said, "What did you just do?" "Nothing, I'm just getting coffee," he said. C told him to leave and to never come back. I again asked him wouldn't it be right to call the police. He said no. As the rush was starting, and I would be going to my second job in about 30 minutes, I obliged. It was 2 days later when I finally met police officers at the store to give my report. Needless to say, the man didn't get caught. But if I would have alerted the police right away, he would have been caught, because he was staying in the store after flashing me. Not all creeps look like creeps. This one looked like everyone else. I had been running the night shift at a local gas station for a few months now, getting used to the quiet nights broken up by the occasional customer rolling in for a late-night snack or a fill-up. One night, around 2 a.m., a stranger walked through the door. He was a tall dude, kind of rough-looking, not someone I remembered seeing before. He grabbed some chips, a couple of energy drinks, and paid at the counter. Our eyes met during the transaction, and there was something off about him, like he had secrets he didn't want anyone to know. After he left, I settled back into my routine, keeping an eye on the security cameras and tidying up the shelves. That's when I heard a weird noise outside. I peeked through the window and saw the same guy struggling with something in the trunk of his car. My heart skipped a beat when I realized there was a hand reaching out, desperate for help. The guy noticed me, though, and his eyes locked onto mine. The look on his face was creepy. Fear gripped me, and I acted fast. I locked the gas station doors, not wanting to get tangled up in whatever mess was going on out there. He started pounding on the glass, demanding to be let inside. Panic welled up inside me, but I wasn't about to open that door. I stood my ground, refusing to give in to his intimidation tactics. He grew more furious, banging harder and yelling all sorts of threats. It was a terrifying standoff, a battle of wills. But just when I thought I couldn't take it any longer, the sound of sirens broke through the night. Flashing police lights lit up the gas station, and the guy's rage turned to desperation. He knew his time was up. In a split second, he turned and disappeared into the darkness, leaving me with a mix of relief and unease. As the police officers approached, I unlocked the doors and spilled out the whole crazy story. They listened attentively, assuring me that they would investigate the situation thoroughly. Their presence brought a sense of comfort, knowing they had my back. With the arrival of the morning shift, I handed over the reins, feeling a sense of weight lifted off my shoulders. But the encounter with that mysterious stranger stayed with me, a constant reminder of the dangers lurking in the night. It made me question whether the job was worth the risks. Walking away from the gas station, the first rays of sunlight breaking through the horizon, I couldn't help but wonder what could have happened if things had gone differently. The memory of those chilling eyes and the pounding on the glass haunted me, serving as a reminder to always trust my instincts and stay vigilant. No more night shifts for me. Life is too short to be living in fear, and I wasn't about to let some creepy encounter dictate my happiness. It was just another night at the gas station convenience store combo I used to work at. A standard job that paid the bills, even though it wasn't my dream gig, you know? I was usually alone, working the graveyard shift. Midnight was creeping closer, the steady tick of the clock seemed louder in the quiet store, and the only semblance of civilization came from the payphone mounted outside. The place wasn't exactly hustling and bustling, just a slow, steady trickle of customers, some looking for a late-night snack, others stopping by for gas. That's when I noticed this young man crossing the parking lot. Nothing special about him, just a guy heading straight for the payphone. No big deal, right? I didn't think much of it at first. But then, in the span of a few minutes, things started feeling off. This guy on the phone was stealing glances into the store. One look, then another, each one making my heart pound a little faster. That sinking feeling started to set in, and it didn't take long for me to put two and two together. He was waiting for the store to clear out. It hit me like a freight train, and my stomach churned. Was I about to be robbed? Or worse? My mind started racing, adrenaline pumping through my veins. I grabbed the store phone and dialed 911. I quickly told them what was going on, voice shaking, but trying to sound calm. They told me to lock the door, but the guy was way too close for me to try that. What if he noticed? What if he rushed in? No, that wasn't an option. I was terrified, close to panicking. At that moment, there were just 2 customers left, both clueless about the potential danger looming outside. Soon, one of them left, leaving a lone young woman. This guy was still watching, waiting. I had to do something, so I started talking to her, small talk, anything to keep her in the store a bit longer. The more I talked, the more this guy on the phone seemed to get impatient. Just when I was losing hope, with the woman preparing to leave and me potentially left alone, I heard the wailing sirens. I felt a wave of relief wash over me as 2 police cruisers roared into the parking lot, lights flashing. The guy on the phone froze for a moment before bolting, but he wasn't quick enough. The cops nabbed him within 100 yards. They found a gun on him, a huge knife, and as it turned out, a rap sheet filled with violent robberies. That night, I made the easiest decision of my life. I quit my job. The safety of a 9-to-5 job suddenly sounded much more appealing. I had been through enough for one lifetime, and there was no way I was risking another night like that. As I handed in my resignation, I couldn't help but think about the what-ifs. But one thing was for sure, I had made the right choice, and I was never going to forget that night.